You yelled at your child again today. And tonight, after they're finally asleep, you'll lie in bed replaying that moment when their bright eyes went dim, when their little shoulders slumped, when you became the scary version of yourself you swore you'd never be. Here, what no one tells you about being a mother. The average mom yells at her children 11 times per week. That's over 500 times per year. And each time, you promise yourself it's the last time. But it never is. What if I told you that in the next 20 minutes, you're going to discover why every parenting strategy you've tried has failed, and learn the 3 simple shifts that will end the yelling cycle forever. Not in months, not in weeks, starting tomorrow. The kitchen floor is sticky again, toys scattered like evidence of the chaos you can't seem to control. And there you are, voice rising above it all, words spilling out faster than you can catch them. How many times do I have to tell you? Your throat feels raw, your chest tight, the silence that follows feels heavier than the noise that came before. Your child's eyes, wide and searching, looking at you like you're a stranger. And in that moment, you promise yourself again, tomorrow will be different. But tomorrow comes with its own battles, its own meltdowns, its own moments, when you find yourself right back here, voice raised, heart breaking, wondering if you're failing at the one thing that matters most. I'm Maria Montessori, and I've spent my life watching children, understanding their tender hearts and their deep need for gentle guidance. I've seen mothers just like you, mothers who love so fiercely it takes their breath away, yet find themselves trapped in patterns that feel impossible to break. If you're here, listening to these words, it means you're searching for something different. You're tired of feeling like the mother you never wanted to become. You're exhausted from the cycle of yelling, apologizing, promising to do better, then yelling again. And I want you to know, this feeling doesn't make you broken. It doesn't make you a bad mother. It makes you human. It makes you a mother who cares so deeply that even your mistakes hurt. It makes you ready for change. Before we go further, I want you to do something for yourself. Something that might feel small, but represents something much bigger. Subscribe to this channel, not because I'm asking for numbers or metrics, but because you deserve a space where your struggles are understood without judgment, where your efforts are seen and valued, where your heart as a mother is honored exactly as it is. This is a place for mothers who are doing their best in a world that often tells them it's not enough. You're not alone in this journey, and you don't have to figure it all out by yourself. Is it even possible to stop yelling when nothing else works? When timeout becomes a battle of wills that leaves everyone exhausted, when taking toys away only creates more defiance, when reasoning with a 3-year-old feels like negotiating with a tiny, irrational diplomat who speaks a language you're still learning. This question haunts so many mothers I've known. It haunted Claire too. Claire was a mother of 2. Emma, 4 years old with curls that seemed to have a mind of their own, and a curiosity that could power a small city. And little Jack, barely 2, with chubby hands that found their way into everything, and a determination that both amazed and exhausted his parents. Claire had once been the kind of person others described as patient. Before children, she'd been a teacher who never raised her voice, who believed deeply in gentle guidance and natural consequences. But motherhood had a way of bringing out parts of herself she didn't know existed. Every morning, Claire would wake up with good intentions, painting the sunrise of her day. She'd lie in bed for those precious quiet minutes before the house stirred, promising herself this would be the day she'd stay calm. She'd visualize patience flowing through her like a gentle stream. She'd imagine herself speaking softly, moving slowly, being the peaceful presence her children needed. But by 8 in the morning, Emma would be refusing to get dressed, insisting that her pajamas were perfectly acceptable attire for preschool. Jack would be throwing cereal across the kitchen, each Cheerio landing like a tiny accusation on the floor she'd just cleaned. The clock would be ticking toward departure time, backpacks would be missing, shoes would have mysteriously vanished, and Claire would find herself back in that familiar place, voice raised, patience gone, heartbreaking a little more. The worst part wasn't the yelling itself, it was what came after. The way Emma's shoulders would slump, her bright chatter fading into confused silence, the way Jack would look up from his high chair, his little face crumpling like paper in water, not understanding why Mama's voice had turned sharp and scary, the way Claire would retreat to the bathroom after everyone was finally out the door, looking at herself in the mirror, with tears streaming down her face, wondering how she'd become this version of herself. She'd started keeping a mental tally of her outbursts, like a reverse gratitude journal. Monday yelled about the mess in the playroom. Tuesday, lost her temper when Emma dawdled getting ready. Wednesday, snapped at Jack for dumping out his toy box again. By Thursday, she was already dreading the weekend, knowing that more time together meant more opportunities to fail. Claire tried everything the parenting book suggested. Timeouts that turned into battles of attrition, with Emma screaming from her room room and Claire standing outside the door feeling like a prison warden. Reward charts that collected dust after the first week, colorful stickers mocking her from the refrigerator, taking away privileges that only made everyone more miserable, turning their home into a courtroom where she was constantly playing judge and jury. She bought books about gentle parenting and felt inspired for exactly 3 days. She downloaded meditation apps and managed exactly 2 sessions before life got in the way. She joined online parenting groups where she read about other mothers' success stories and feel both hopeful and inadequate, wondering why everyone else seemed to have figured out secrets that remained mysteriously out of her reach. Nothing worked because nothing addressed the real problem. The problem wasn't Emma's behavior, or Jack's curiosity, or even Claire's stress levels. The problem was that she was fighting against her children's very nature. Instead of working with it, she was trying to force cooperation instead of creating conditions where cooperation could flourish naturally. One rainy Tuesday afternoon in November, after Emma had painted the bathroom mirror with toothpaste, creating what she called snow art, and Jack had emptied an entire drawer of silverware onto the floor, in a symphony of metallic chaos, Claire found herself sitting on her kitchen counter, head in her hands, when something fundamental shifted. The house was quiet, finally. Emma was napping, exhausted from her morning of creative destruction. Jack was in his crib, babbling softly to his stuffed elephant, and Claire sat there in the aftermath, surrounded by the evidence of her children's busy minds and busy hands, when a different question emerged from somewhere deep inside her tired heart. Instead of her usual "how do I make them stop?" she found herself asking, "what are they trying to tell me?" Emma wasn't painting the mirror to be defiant or destructive. She was exploring texture, discovering how different materials behave, testing the boundaries of her small world with the scientific curiosity of a natural reason. The bathroom mirror wasn't canvas to her, it was possibility, it was wonder, it was the perfect smooth surface for her artistic vision. Jack wasn't emptying drawers to create chaos or push boundaries. He was satisfying his deep, innate need to sort, to organize, to understand how things worked and where they belonged. His little hands were drawn to containers and contents with the precision of a tiny explorer mapping uncharted territory. Every spoon and fork he placed on the floor was a small victory in his quest to understand his environment. They weren't being bad children. They were being children, with developmental needs and natural curiosities that were being met in ways they could understand and access independently. They were seeking connection, understanding, and autonomy in the only ways they knew how. This revelation changed everything. This is where the first principle of what I call peaceful discipline begins, preparing the environment for cooperation instead of constantly saying no. Instead of child-proofing her home, Claire began child-empowering it. She started small, with changes that seemed almost too simple to matter. She moved the step stool to the bathroom so Emma could reach the sink independently, transforming teeth brushing from a dependent activity requiring help into an autonomous skill Emma could master. She placed a small basket of washcloths on the counter so Emma could clean up her own spills, turning accidents from opportunities for scolding into chances for capable problem-solving. In the kitchen, she filled a low drawer with safe items Jack could explore freely. Wooden spoons, measuring cups, plastic containers with lids he could remove and replace. She created what she began thinking of as yes spaces, areas where her children could follow their natural impulses without hearing the word no every few minutes. She placed a small pitcher of water and cups on a tray Emma could manage alone, along with napkins for cleaning up spills. She hung child-sized aprons on low hooks so Emma could help with cooking without worrying about her clothes. She created comfortable reading nooks where both children could look at books independently, surrounded by soft pillows and good lighting. The magic wasn't immediate, but it was real and unmistakable. When Emma could brush her teeth without asking for help, she stopped seeing the bathroom as a place for creative mischief. When Jack had his own drawer to empty and refill to his heart's content, he stopped emptying Claire's carefully organized spaces. When they could serve themselves water and snacks from child-accessible locations, they stopped demanding these things at the exact moment Claire was juggling dinner prep and homework, supervision, and the endless orchestration of family life. But environment alone wasn't enough. There were still moments when boundaries needed to be set clearly, when safety required immediate intervention, when behavior needed gentle but firm guidance. This is where the second principle came alive in their daily life: language that was firm and gentle, clear and kind, respectful and effective. One morning, Jack pushed Emma off the couch in his eagerness to claim her spot by the window. In the past, Claire would have yelled across across the room. "Jack, stop hitting your sister. That's not nice. Say you're sorry." Her voice would have carried frustration and judgment, creating shame instead of learning. Instead, Claire knelt down to Jack's eye level, her voice calm but unmistakably serious. "I won't let you push, Emma," she said quietly. "Pushing hurts people's bodies and feelings. I can see you want the spot by the window. Let's find a way to ask for what you need." Her words held a boundary as solid as a wall, but they were delivered with the gentleness of a caress. Jack stopped, not because he was afraid, but because he was understood. His need was acknowledged even as his method was redirected. Emma looked on, seeing that her safety mattered, and that problems could be solved without yelling or punishment. This language, "I will and let you," instead of "do you and to do that," or "stop it," became Claire's anchor in stormy moments. "I won't let you throw blocks. Blocks are for building, and throwing could hurt someone. I won't let you hit the dog. I can see you're frustrated. Let's find another way to show those big feelings." The words held boundaries without breaking connection, created safety without shame. But perhaps the most transformative discovery was the third principle: connection before correction. Claire learned that a child who feels disconnected, misunderstood, or judged will rarely choose cooperation. Before addressing behavior, she started addressing the heart beneath the behavior. When Emma melted down because her block tower fell, instead of immediately launching into a lesson about being careful with building materials, Claire sat beside her daughter on the floor. "Your tower falling feels so disappointing," she said, her voice matching Emma's emotional intensity without adding her own frustration to the mix. "You worked so hard on that. You had it just the way you wanted it." She waited. She breathed with Emma. She let the storm of disappointment run its course without trying to fix it or stop it or hurry it along. And only after Emma's breathing had settled, after her fists had unclenched, after the immediate pain had been witnessed and honored, did Claire gently show Emma how blocks balance better when the bigger ones form the foundation. When Jack threw his cup across the room in frustration, instead of launching into a lecture about throwing or making messes, Claire picked him up and held him close. "Something is bothering you," she said, her voice warm with understanding. "Your body is telling me you need help with these big feelings." She didn't try to stop his emotions or shame him for having them. She held him until his breathing settled, until his rigid little body relaxed into hers, until he was ready to learn rather than react. The transformation didn't happen overnight. There were still hard mornings when everyone woke up on the wrong side of the bed. There were still challenging bedtimes when exhaustion made everyone less patient. There were still moments when Claire felt overwhelmed, when old patterns tried to reassert themselves, when her voice started to rise despite her best intentions. But something fundamental had shifted in their home. Claire was no longer fighting against her children's essential nature, their curiosity, their need for autonomy, their big emotions, their developmental stages. She was working with these forces instead of against them. She was no longer trying to control their behavior through fear or shame. She was teaching them to understand themselves, to recognize their needs, to develop the internal skills that would serve them throughout their lives. Emma began to see herself as capable and trusted. She started cleaning up spills without being asked, because she had the tools and the confidence to handle small problems independently. She began asking for help when she needed it, instead of melting down in frustration, because she felt safe expressing her needs without judgment. Jack's exploratory behavior became more purposeful and less destructive. When he could satisfy his need to sort and organize through appropriate activities, he stopped seeking that stimulation through inappropriate ones. His natural curiosity was channeled into learning opportunities rather than behavioral challenges. Most importantly, the atmosphere in their home shifted from one of constant correction to one of mutual respect and cooperation. Mornings became smoother, not because the children became perfect, but because the environment supported their success. Bedtimes became more peaceful, not because bedtime routines disappeared, but because they were structured in ways that honored everyone's need. The science behind why this approach works is both simple and profound. When we yell, when we shame, when we punish, our children's brains shift into survival mode. The thinking part, the prefrontal cortex where learning and reasoning happen, shuts down. The emotional center takes over, flooding their small bodies with stress hormones that make learning impossible. They can't process our words, our lessons, our love when their nervous systems are activated in this way. They can only react, fight, flight, or freeze. But when we stay calm, when we connect first, when we hold boundaries with gentleness and respect, their brains stay open and receptive. The thinking parts remain online. They can hear us not just with their ears, but with their hearts. They can learn not just compliance, but genuine understanding. They can grow not just in size, but in emotional intelligence and But here's what I want you to understand most most deeply. Dear mother, this isn't about becoming a perfect parent who never feels frustrated or overwhelmed. This isn't about achieving some impossible standard of constant patience and wisdom. It's about becoming a peaceful presence in your child's world, not because you never experience storms, but because you know how to anchor yourself when the waters get rough. Some days you'll remember to connect before you correct. Some days you'll forget and jump straight to fixing the problem. Some days you'll yell anyway, and your children will see you as human, as someone who makes mistakes and repairs them, as someone who loves them even when love feels difficult. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress, one moment at a time, one interaction at a time, one day at a time. Your children don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be real, to be honest about your struggles, to show them that love doesn't disappear when voices get loud. That connection is stronger than any single moment of disconnection. They need you to repair when you make mistakes, to apologize when your behavior doesn't match your values, to model the very skills you're trying to teach them. Think of yourself as the anchor in their storm, not because you never shake or move, but because you stay grounded in love even when the waves get rough. Think of yourself as their safe harbor, not because you're always calm, but because you're always working to return to calm. Think of yourself as their guide, not because you have all the answers, but because you're willing to keep learning alongside them. This work, this shift from punishment to connection, from control to guidance, from yelling to understanding, it changes everything. Not just for your children, but for you. You'll find yourself breathing deeper because you're not constantly braced for the next battle. You'll sleep better because your days end with connection instead of regret. You'll look in the mirror and recognize the mother you always hoped to be, not because you're perfect, but because you're becoming more yourself. The transformation ripples outward in ways you might not expect. Your children will start using your gentle language with their toys, their pets, their friends. They'll begin self-regulating because they've learned to recognize their own needs and emotions. They'll develop resilience because they've experienced unconditional love, even in difficult moments. But perhaps most importantly, you'll break cycles that may have been passed down through generations. You'll give your children the gift of knowing that their worth isn't dependent on their behavior, that love isn't conditional on performance. That home is a place where they can be fully human. Mistakes, big emotions, growing edges, and all. The path forward is simpler than you think, though not always easy. Start tomorrow with one small change. Maybe it's placing a stool by the sink so your child can wash their own hands, transforming a moment of dependence into one of capable independence. Maybe it's practicing the phrase "I won't unlet you" instead of "stop it" or "do you want do that," creating boundaries that protect without shaming. Maybe it's taking 3 deep breaths before you respond to challenging behavior, giving yourself the moment you need to choose your response instead of reacting from frustration. Maybe it's asking, "What are they trying to tell me?" instead of "How do I make them stop?" When behavior feels difficult to understand, each small step builds the life you want. A home filled with cooperation instead of conflict, understanding instead of frustration, connection instead of chaos. Your children are watching, learning, growing with every choice you make. They're absorbing not just your words, but your energy, your intentions, your love expressed through your actions. And you, dear mother, you have everything within you to be their gentle guide. You have wisdom deeper than you know, strength greater than you feel, and love more powerful than any challenge you'll face. Trust yourself, trust the process, trust that small changes compound into transformation that will surprise you with its depth and permanence. Remember, you are enough exactly as you are. You have everything you need to begin this journey. And tomorrow really can be different, not because your children will suddenly become perfect angels, but because you'll have new tools, new understanding, and new ways of seeing the beautiful, complex, wonderfully human little people in your care. What makes you feel like yelling the most these days? Is it the morning rush, the bedtime battles, the constant messes, the negotiation over meals? Share in the comments below. Sometimes naming our struggles is the first step toward healing them, and often you'll find that other mothers are walking this same path, facing similar challenges, learning the same lessons. And if these words gave you even one breath of relief, one moment of hope, one small shift in perspective, please subscribe. This journey toward gentler parenting, toward deeper connection, toward the mother you're becoming. It's easier when we walk it together. You're not alone in this work, and you don't have to figure it all out by yourself. For those ready to take the next step, I've created a free Montessori discipline guide designed specifically for tired mothers like you. It's short because I know your time is precious. It's practical because you need strategies you can use today. It is filled with gentle approaches because you're ready for something different than what you've tried before. Download it not because you have to add one more thing to your already full plate, but because you deserve support in this sacred work of raising human beings? Because your peace matters. Because the mother you're becoming is worth investing in. Because your children deserve the gift of your gentleness, and you deserve the gift of feeling proud of how you show up in their world. Remember, you are enough. You have everything you need, and tomorrow really can be different.